I will forego the usual opening remarks at this time due to the fact that we have executive session scheduled for 6 o'clock. So we'll take up that first on the agenda. Executive session under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 3923B3, to discuss litigation relating to the hack decision issued for application 117-16, Falmouth Hospitality LLC, 0 and 558 Main Street, 0, 3, 4, and 6 Lantern Lane in Falmouth. I will make the motion myself to go into executive session for this. If this were to be held in public, the discussion would be have a possibly jeopardize and have a detrimental effect upon the board's position regarding this matter. And I will also make a motion to reconvene back into open session in order to address the rest of the agenda scheduled for tonight. So there will be a roll call vote.
You need a second?
Oh, I'm sorry, second by Ken.
Yes.
Thank you, Ken. Roll call vote. Scott?
Scott Zelinski, aye.
Bob?
Robert Dugan, aye.
Ken?
Ken Forman, aye.
Mary?
Mary Berry, aye.
James?
James Morse, aye.
And TJ Hurry, aye. And just for a housekeeping note, those of you in attendance on this link, you're in the right place. Stand by. The board as a whole will be clicking a different link to go into executive session, and we will take up matters on the rest of the agenda.
And Mr. Chairman, I won't be participating in the executive session since I'm in a butter.
All right, thank you, Bob. So we'll note that. So I guess, Noreen, the board can all click the link, and we will be joining in a different Zoom chat room. And again, for those of you watching on FCTV and in the attendees list on Zoom, stay put, you're in the right place. Thank you. Meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. The board was previously in executive session. In accordance with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law relating to the 2020 novel coronavirus outbreak emergency, tonight's Zoning Board of Appeals meeting shall be physically closed to the public to avoid group congregation. There are alternative measures in place to provide public access. As is customary, the meeting is televised via Falmouth Community Television, and real-time public comment can be addressed to the Zoning Board of Appeals utilizing the Zoom virtual meeting software for remote access. This application will allow users to view the meeting and send a comment or question to the chair via the chat function. Submitted text questions will be read into the record at the appropriate points in the meeting. The Zoom login instructions are as followed. They can be reached at the web address www.falmouthmass.us/ZBA. And from there is a link to access the Zoom app, and you can ask your questions via the chat function that way. I'll introduce the board at this time. Tonight, my name is TJ Hurry. I'm the chairman of the board. We also have Ken Foreman, who is the vice chairman of the board, Bob Dugan, who is the clerk. Ed Van Kuren will be meeting up with us momentarily. He is a full voting member. Scott Zelinski, who is also a full voting member. Mary Berry, who is an associate member, and James Morse, who is an associate member as well. We also have Noreen Stockman, who is the zoning administrator, and Ashley DeMello, who is the recording secretary for tonight. Also with us tonight from the IT department of the town is Thomas Cox and Adriana Paterno, and FCTV is assisting us as well with our online presence. So thank you everyone for helping us. The Zoning Board of Appeals is charged with applying the zoning bylaws for the town, and we consider requests on special permits, variances, and appeals as provided in the bylaws, which have been approved by town meeting and the Attorney General's office for the Commonwealth. All decisions that the board makes are made through the public hearing process. The board's goal is to hear testimony from the applicants and also from the public, and to allow a full and fair discussion of the project prior to rendering a decision. To begin each hearing, the clerk will read the public announcement of the hearing and then present any pertinent information from the file, such as referrals from town departments and summarizing correspondences to the board. The applicant or the applicant's representative will then have 15 minutes to make a presentation, and time may be extended by vote of the board. The board will then question the applicant, and the public will be invited to comment as well. And once again, since we are meeting virtually, public comment can be entered through the Zoom webinar chat using the Zoom app. And once again, the address for that is www.falmouthmass.us/ZBA. We also ask you to please state your full name and address for the record. Public comment should only be directed at the project itself, and we also ask you to please refrain from making any personal or derogatory statements. Public comment can include an opinion in favor or in opposition, or it just might be a simple question about the nature of the project. All members of the, I'm reading off of the usual things here, and I already mentioned that. So just use the Zoom webinar chat for any public comment. We will then either close or continue the hearing when the board is satisfied that enough information has been presented by testimony and in the file to make a decision by motion and vote of the board. The hearing will be closed. In the alternative, the board may continue the hearing to a future date and time certain. After the hearing is closed, no more testimony may be taken. And as for board discussion and decision, the board may then further discuss the project among ourselves and make a motion to deny or approve would be made and voted upon. The motion would include a summary of key findings and conditions. An affirmative vote of 4 members, which is a supermajority, is required for approval of motions on special permits, variances, and appeals. A split vote, such as a 3-2 vote, would be a failure to carry and would result in denial of the project. Under Massachusetts general law, if a special permit is denied, the application cannot return to the board for 2 years unless the project is substantially different. So turning to our agenda for the night, we already had executive session. We have public comment. We have 3 continuations, 3 new hearings, and items on our open meeting agenda. So as I said before, the board already convened into executive session, so that portion of the evening is done. We do have public comment scheduled. This public comment is for anyone out there who has a comment to make on something that is not on the agenda tonight. And again, public comment regarding applications will be picked up at the appropriate time during the public hearing. So if anyone has any public comment regarding something that is not on the agenda, go ahead and type that into the webinar chat. If anything comes through, I'll be sure to read it, everyone. And while anyone might be typing away, I do have a statement to make. It's regarding the vote for 213 North Falmouth Highway that the board had at our last meeting. At the meeting on May 28th, 2020, the Zoning Board of Appeals voted on an insubstantial changes proposed as part of a settlement agreement to amend the 213 North Falmouth Highway Comprehensive Permit number 20-19. The vote was 3-2 with 3 in favor and 2 opposed. The board inadvertently announced that the motion did not carry. However, for special permits, the vote required to carry is a simple majority. Therefore, the motion made to approve the insubstantial change to the comprehensive permit, including allowing construction of 8 duplex dwellings or 16 total units, passed. The document recording this vote has been filed with the town clerk, and the statement shall serve to correct the minutes which were recorded for May 28th, 2020. And looking into the webinar chat, we don't have any sort of public comment for things that are not on the agenda. So we will move forward with the agenda.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to take items out of order, to take the new hearings prior to any of the continuations.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right. So that motion was made by Bob and seconded by Scott. We'll do a roll call vote since we're meeting virtually. Bob?
Robert Dugan, aye.
Mary?
Mary Berry, aye.
James?
James Morse, aye.
Ken?
Ken Forman, aye.
Scott?
Scott Zelinski, aye.
And Ed?
Ed Van Kuren, aye.
Thank you, Ed. And TJ Hurry, aye. So the motion carries unanimously to take the hearings out of order. Up first, we have the new hearings. We have application 30-20 Muse, 14 Benham Road in Falmouth, requesting a special permit to allow the installation of a tent for outdoor seating.
And Mr. Chairman, we have correspondence from the applicant. They're asking for a continuance of tonight's meeting to the next available date. The next available date will be July 9th, so I'll make a motion to continue this hearing to July 9th.
I'll second.
Very good. So the motion made to continue to July 9th was made by Bob and seconded by James. Roll call vote again. Bob?
Robert Dugan, aye.
Mary?
Mary Berry, aye.
James?
James Morse, aye.
Ken?
Ken Forman, aye.
Scott?
Scott Zelinski, aye.
Ed?
Ed Van Kuren, aye.
And TJ Hurry, aye. So application 30-20 is continued to July 9th, 2020. And Bob, your motion was to take the new hearing straight out of order, correct?
Yeah, so we're moving straight on to applicant 28-20 Mahoney.
Okay, application 28-20 Mahoney Trustees, 2 Elysian Ave in Falmouth, requesting a special permit to remove existing covered entry and construct a porch addition.
Have we elevated the applicants?
Not yet.
know
Who
who
are
is
they
it?
exactly? I don't see Mahoney's here.
Tim Santos from H&M.
Perfect.
There he is.
Okay, so application number 28-20, being all persons deemed affected by the Board of Appeals under Section 11 of Chapter 48 of the Mass General Laws, you are hereby notified that Thomas William Mahoney and Heather Sherman Mahoney, trustees of Melrose, Mass, have applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit pursuant to Sections 240-3C, 240-68B, and 240-69E of the Code of Falmouth to remove existing covered entry and construct a porch addition on subject property known as 2 Elysian Ave, Falmouth, Mass. For referrals from engineering, application was reviewed for impacts to public rights of way and public utilities. Elysian Avenue is a public right of way in this area. There are no alterations proposed to the right of way. Any changes within the right of way would require filing a permit with the engineering division. 2, any connections or alterations to public utilities would require permission from the appropriate town department. 3, the project must not direct any stormwater runoff to public property or butters of public rights of way. 4, dry wells are proposed for the roof area and driveway. 5, we recommend adding the following condition be included in any approval. Upon completion of construction, the applicant shall post the address for this residence per section 99-1, affixing of legible numbers required and time limit for compliance. 6, where this site slopes down to the street and no permit for engineering is required, we request that erosion and sediment controls requirements are included in any approval for this project to protect the town's downstream stormwater system. We recommend that the plans be revised to include proposed erosion and sediment controls for protection of the town right of way and the downstream catch basin, or that a condition be included in any approval that requires review and approval of erosion and sediment controls by the engineering division prior to issuance of a building permit. We recommend the following condition be included in any approval: that construction of this project shall follow the attached soil erosion and sediment control standards. References to the Department of Public Works Engineering Division shall be replaced with the Zoning Board of Appeals, who is the permitting authority for the project. Assessors, no comment. There's a note here from Concom. The Concom voted to approve the project and issued a -2 RDA, which they attached. It is integral that the proposed catch basin and dry wells are installed. They were proposed under a previous filing, but were never put in. Fire Department, no comment, and Planning, no comment.
Okay, and for the applicant, sorry, Bob, is that everything?
Let me just see if there's a letter. I'll also make note that they did submit lot coverage calculations for the area with 12 homes in the area. And on the calculations, 2 Elysian was at 19.5. All the other properties that they listed go anywhere from 22.5 as high as 46.2. Yeah, that's it for now.
All right, thank you, Bob. And for the applicant, we have Tim Santos from H&M.
Good evening. For the record, Tim Santos from Holmes and McGrath, representing the applicant. I'm going to share my screen to bring up the plot plan, and I can go over what we're looking for. Can you see that?
We can.
Okay, the property is located at 2 Elysian. It's currently developed with an existing single-family home and a attached covered porch right here. Property is currently a pre-existing non-conforming structure. It's non-conforming to the sideline, to the north and the south, and I'll zoom in. Currently, we are 6 feet to the north sideline and 4.9 feet to the south sideline. The applicant is proposing to remove the existing covered porch and would like to construct a new covered porch. Those setbacks will be no closer than what exists. It's actually 7 feet from the north and 7 feet from the south. So that is the special permit under section 240-68B for the minimum sideline setbacks of 10 feet. We're no more non-conforming that one previously existed. And we are also looking for a special permit from 240-69E for the lot coverage. And what I'll do is I will bring this lot coverage page up. These we grabbed these numbers from the assessors and created this little spreadsheet for you to show the 12 surrounding neighborhood properties. As you can see, and as Mr. Dugan already stated, To Elysian is 19.5 currently, and it will go up to 24.8 once constructed, if approved for that porch. And it's still in the lower half of the 12 homes. I think there's 23, 4, 22.5, and 24.1 are slightly less than what's there. The highest one I believe was 46.2. So we believe that it fits in with the neighborhood and no more detrimental than what currently exists. And I do have some pictures right here. You zoom out a little bit. That's a front view, and the home is currently 29.6 feet high. And the new porch would come across the front here. And then I have a side shot, a rear shot, and that's the other side of the house. And we also did, let me zoom out on this one, sorry. We also submitted architectural plans showing the porch. If the board has any questions on those, we could talk about those. I believe it's 8 feet off the north side and 6-7 off the southern side, and it's about 30.5 feet long. So we believe that it meets your criteria for the issuance of a special permit. And if the board has any questions, I'd be more than happy to address them. And I will stop sharing.
All right, thank you, Mr. Santos. And just a matter of housekeeping, voting members on this are the regular voting members. And if there's anyone out there who has any sort of public comment, please use the webinar chat to send in your question, comments, or concerns and add your full name and address for the record. So we will turn it to board questions at this time. Bob, do you have anything?
No questions.
Mary?
No questions.
James?
No questions.
Ken?
So you also submitted some rather beautiful drawings of the gardens in the front. Are those plantings real?
Those are not.
Hmm.
They are nice architectural, so.
Scott, any questions?
Yeah, Tim, that's a fairly new sewer connection for the town, right? And
Yes.
the structure that holds that grinder pump is going to be directly under that deck. Have you guys made, is there going to be a hatch, or how do you service that in the event?
Yeah, I'll if you let me share the screen again. I'll make sure I'm on the right one. Just bear with me. If you look at the plan, there are DPW notes. Ooh. Sorry about that. There are DPW notes on the right side of the plan. We have spoken with Amy Lowell about how we're going to access that. An access hatch will be built over it. There'll be no sonotubes next to the unit, and all of the vent lines, the electric lines, and the sewer lines will be protected during construction of the proposed porch if approved. But we have spoken with her, and she was satisfied with the plan as long as we added these notes.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Scott. Ed, any questions?
No questions. It was pretty straightforward.
All right, thank you, Ed. And Mr. Santos, I do have a question specifically about those architectural pictures that Ken mentioned, and they would be A2 and A3 in the packet that you sent to us. And there, it could be the angle, but it looks as if there may be an overhang that's going past the existing setbacks from the proposed roof for the addition.
The addition, okay. All right, so if you look at this plan here, the 8 and the 30.5 or 30.42, that goes to, if you're talking about, are you talking about this overhang right here? Can you see it on-
Sorry, I have to move.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just have to move everyone over. Yes, that, and on the opposite
On the
end as
opposite
well.
side, that's included in the 8 feet and the 30.4.
Okay, so
the,
it's
the actual patio below it is slightly smaller.
okay. So it's just a bit of an optical illusion there. The angle, I guess.
Yes.
All right. Thank you for the clarification. Does anyone have any follow-up questions at all from the board?
No,
All right, seeing none. And there's also no public comment in the webinar chat. So is the board satisfied that we've heard enough?
Yeah,
I'm
motion to
happy to-
close.
Second.
All right, motion to close. I think that was from Bob and seconded by Ken. Full vote, Bob,
Robert Dugan, aye.
James? Oh, I'm sorry, Ken,
Ken Forman, aye.
Ed,
Ed Van Kuren, aye.
Scott,
Scott Zelinski, aye.
and TJ Hurry, aye. So the hearing is closed. What would be the board's pleasure?
So motion to approve with conditions.
Second.
All right, motion to approve made by Bob and seconded by Ken. Findings?
So 240-3C, 240-68B, 240-69E, 240-216. The existing house is non-conforming to setbacks. On the south side, 4.9, on the north side, 6.0. Applicant is replacing the existing entry and replacing it with a porch addition. Porch will not encroach any closer than current setbacks. And the plan did setbacks to the overhang on the roof on the porch. Lot coverage calculations were submitted. Existing property 19.5, proposed to be 24.8, which is below others in the area. Roof height of the addition will be 10.6. There are dry wells proposed at both the roof and the driveway. Property is located in Little Pond Coastal Pond Overlay District and is in the AE elevation 13. The property is zoned residential C. Is also connected to the town sewer. Testimony was that there'll be hatch access to the grinder pump, and they have spoken to wastewater. But anything having to do with that would have approval by need approval by wastewater. Also, that the should note that the Concom Comcom did issue a -2 RDA and has asked that the proposed catch basin dry wells are installed since they were not installed under a previous filing.
All right, anything else for findings?
That's all I have.
Conditions?
Per plans. Again, setbacks are to the roof overhang. Anything having to do with access to that grinder pump with the sewer would need approval from wastewater division. Subject to section 99-1, fixing of legible numbers. Also subject to engineering's comments regarding construction of the project shall follow the attached soil and erosion sediment control standards. And any references to the Department of Public Works shall be replaced with Zoning Board of Appeals since we're the permitting agency. Dry wells are required for the roof and driveway. No alterations are set to the public rights of way. I think we should also condition, it is a one-way street on Elysian. If they have to block traffic at any point, they'd have to arrange that with the police department. And then keep all materials and construction equipment on site if possible.
All right, anything
And
else?
No, the lots there are very small, so around 3,000 square feet. So we should probably also put in working time for construction, the normal hours that we use, the Monday through Saturday, no Sundays or holidays.
Okay. Anything else, either findings or conditions? All right, seeing none. Motion to approve with conditions was made by Bob and seconded by Ken. Roll call vote. Bob?
Robert Dugan, aye.
Ken?
And Foreman,
Ed? And we'll get back to him. Scott?
Scott Zelinski, aye.
Ed Van Kuren, aye.
There it is. TJ Hurry, aye. All right. Project passes unanimously with conditions. Thank you for your time, Mr. Santos.
Thank you for your time. See you in a few hearings.
All right, moving along with our list, we have application 29-20 Gore Trustees, 530 Woods Hole Road in Woods Hole, requesting a special permit to construct an addition to the easterly side of the pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling. And I believe Attorney Kevin Clower is representing the applicant.
So application number 29-20, being all persons deemed affected by the Board of Appeals under section 11 of chapter 48 of the Mass General Laws, you are hereby notified that John C. Gore and Joyce M. Gore, trustees of Nashville, Tennessee, have applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit pursuant to sections 240-3C the Code of Falmouth to construct an addition to the easterly side of the pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling on subject property known as 530 Woods Hole Road, Woods Hole, Mass. For referrals from engineering, 1, this application was reviewed for impact to the public rights of way and public utilities. Woods Hole Road is a state right-of-way in this area. Any alterations within the right-of-way will require permission from Mass DOT. Any connections or alterations to public utilities would require permission from the appropriate town department. The project must not direct any stormwater runoff to public property, abutters, or rights of way. We recommend that the board add a condition that requires the addition of dry wells, rain garden, or stormwater infiltration measures for the new roof area at a minimum. Assessors, no comment. Fire department, no comment. Water department, property currently has a 3/4-inch copper service installed in 1935. There is no indication that proposed project impact the water service to the property. Planning department, no comment. And from conservation staff has no comment regarding the project as it appears to be outside conservation jurisdiction. Health department, no issues with the health department. There was one letter of concern that was submitted. This letter is from a Stephen and Carol Wagner. Dear board members, I'm writing to you on behalf of my husband and myself, the closest abutters to the property at 530 Woods Hole Road. Thank you for the invitation to attend the hearing via Zoom. However, if we are unable to log into this hearing, we wanted you to know that we do not oppose our neighbor's desire to add on to their home. Our only concern with the proposed bump out of the structure and accompanying exterior structure staircase is, of course, the proximity to our home. And will this have any effect on the value of our property? Thank you for the opportunity to voice our concern. Signed, Stephen and Carol Wagner.
All right.
And there is actually, there's 2 statements again by the Wagners, but it's nothing that hasn't been put into the letter.
All right, and once again, the voting members on this are the regular voting members. And if there are any members of the public who have any questions, comments, concerns regarding the project, please type it into the webinar chat. Include your full name and address for the record, and we will address that when the time comes. Attorney Clower.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, my name is Kevin Clower. I'm an attorney with Ahmet Clower Law Firm here in Falmouth, and I represent the applicants, John and Joyce Gore. They are the owners of 530 Woods Hole Road, and they're seeking tonight to make a small addition on the easterly side of their existing non-conforming dwelling. 530 Woods Hole Road is located on the southern side of Woods Hole Road, near to the village. It's on a lot of about 11,420 square feet, and it's located in the residential C zoning district. What exists today is a 2-story, 3-bedroom house with a footprint of about 1,450 square feet. It's non-conforming to the front yard setback being 13.7 feet where 25 is required. It's otherwise conforming to the side and rear yard setbacks, as well as lot coverage by structure and lot coverage by structure, paving, and parking. The existing ridge height of the house is 29 feet. The Gores are seeking to make a small addition in order to expand the existing living area on the first floor and to add a small deck and stairs at the rear of the home. There's no change to the bedrooms or the ridge height. And in fact, the proposed ridge height is well below the existing. It will only be 14 feet high. The side yard setback will remain conforming at 10 or just over 10 feet, and the front yard setback will remain unchanged. The lot coverage by structure, even after the addition, will still only be 14.6%, well below the 20% that's allowed by right and the 25% that's allowed by special permit. This is, I think, a modest request, but due to the existing non-conforming setback, it does require a special permit under section 243C. That section states that pre-existing conforming structures may be changed by special permit, provided that they're not substantially more detrimental than what presently exists. The board is asked to consider the standards of 240-216 and whether or not this creates any new dimensional nonconformities, impairs views and vistas, or reasonably conforms to the neighborhood. These proposed alterations constitute an improvement of the conditions of the property to the applicant. They're not substantially more detrimental than what exists. There's no new nonconformity created, and there's no impact on the existing nonconformity. And it's well within the allowed parameters for lot coverage. Given the foregoing, I would ask the board grant the special permit, and I'd be happy to address any questions that you may have at this time.
Thank you, Attorney Clower. I will turn it to board questions. And just again, if there's anyone out there who has a comment, question, concern regarding this project, please put in your full name and address into the webinar chat, and we will get to it shortly. Bob, any questions?
I guess my only question, Mr. Clower, is would the well, we had that letter put in, would the applicant be amenable to put any kind of a screening where that stairway is at all? I know they're well, from the setback that they needed.
I don't know is the short answer, because I haven't had a chance to ask that of the applicant. My understanding of the site is that it is pretty well wooded along the sides from the photographs I've seen. But I think that, the applicant has been at that property for some time and wants to maintain a good relationship with their neighbor. I think that I'd rather not have that as a condition, but I can certainly suggest to them that they speak with the neighbor about that.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Bob. James?
No questions. There is a comment from Mr. Gore, though, that's in the chat about that last question. Mr. Dugan.
All right, and thank you for pointing that out, James, and we'll just get through board questions first. Ed, anything?
I have no questions.
Mary?
No questions.
Scott?
I have no questions. I have a slight comment. I don't think that the screening is going to be an issue, or the water that was referenced, because the grade takes off so drastically down towards the back of it. I think that's going to take care of anything, any issues there. My only thing is working out of that driveway is a little a little scary coming in and out of there, but, no, I have no questions.
Thank you, Scott. Ken, anything?
No question.
And Attorney Clower, just to go off of what Scott mentioned, and any construction vehicles, all that, I know that Woods Hole Road is pretty busy. Everything would be kept on site.
Of course.
All right, thank you. And we do have a comment in the webinar chat from John Gore. He says, oh, yes, we will want to screen the stairs. There are bushes now, and we will add evergreens. Thank you, Mr. Gore, for that. And other than that, I don't see any other public comment. Any follow-up questions from the board?
No.
To close?
All right, motion to close, Ken?
I'll
Is there a
second it.
second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Scott. Roll call vote. Bob?
Robert Dugan, aye.
Ed?
Ed Van Kuren, aye.
Scott?
Scott Zelinski, aye.
Ken?
Ken Forman, aye.
And TJ Hurry, aye. All right, what will be the board's pleasure?
So motion to approve with conditions?
Second it.
All right, motion to approve with conditions made by Bob and seconded by Scott. Findings.
240-3C, 240-216, not substantially more detrimental. Property's only here because they're non-conforming to a front yard setback, 13.7 feet where 25 is required. The addition and work will result in no new non-conformities, and the proposed lot coverage will only be 14.6%, which is well below what is allowed. The applicant, Mr. Gore, has stated that they do plan on doing some evergreen screening where the stairs are, and that's in response to a neighbor asking if he could do some screening in that location.
Very good. Conditions?
Per plans, dry wells will be needed for at least the new roof area of the addition. All construction equipment and material to be kept on site. Now, there's no need to condition, I think, on the screening, like Scott said, and the applicant already said they are going to add some trees. It's a pretty modest addition.
Yeah.
Definitely. All right, so does that do it for findings and conditions?
Yeah, that's fine.
So that was a motion with conditions made by Bob. And did I give the second to Scott?
Yes, sir.
I think I did. Thank you, Scott. All right, roll call vote. Bob?
Robert Dugan, aye.
Ed?
Ed Van Kuren, aye.
Scott?
Scott Zelinski, aye.
Ken?
Ken Forman, aye.
And TJ Hurry, aye. So the motion passes with conditions unanimously. Thank you,
Thank
Attorney
you
Clower.
very much.
Thank you. All right, so that does it for our new hearings. We are circling back to our continuations. We have application 19-20 Mannix Shields, 10 Crown Ave in Falmouth. The voting members on this are myself, Ken, Bob, Ed, and Scott. And I believe Attorney Clower is representing the applicant on. Oh, you're muted, Attorney Clower.
I had a moment of panic after my last speech that I had been muted the whole time, so this was fine.
It worked out for you, though.
If we could elevate Tim Santos and Jill Neubauer as well, please.
Sure.
Good evening again, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Again, for the record, my name is Kevin Clower. I'm an attorney with Clower Law Firm here in Falmouth, and I represent the applicants John Mannix Jr. and Carmel Shields. They're the owners of 10 Crown Avenue. 10 Crown Avenue, as we've discussed, is at the highest point of Falmouth Heights, a very dense, largely seasonal residential community. on a lot of 4,287 square feet. What's existing at the site is two dwellings. The front dwelling is a 3-bedroom Victorian style home and formerly part of the Oakcrest Inn. And in the rear is a detached 2-bedroom cottage. The applicants, again, are seeking to raise and rebuild that cottage and replace it with one similar in style to the Victorian main house, as well as to many of the nearby properties, compatible and appropriate with the nature of the area. This would not add a bedroom, and it actually reduces a bedroom, does not create any new nonconformities, and does not increase any existing nonconformities. Following the last hearing, we did submit additional documentation, which include a revised site plan showing a relocation of the cobblestone apron and the fence onto the site. Also, the AC unit is no longer on a concrete pad, is hanging on the building. We submitted a passing Title V report from the time the applicants purchased in 2018, showing an actual bedroom count of 6. And we've also provided a sketch plan showing a potential septic replacement if one was necessary, showing that a new system could still be located on the site. And also a sketch plan showing parking that accommodates 3 cars, though the application does not add a bedroom or alter the current use. Last week, I also received notice from Ms. Stockman that we would not be able to modify, following a conversation of hers with the town council, that we would not be able to modify the 1988 permit for this application. And as I noted at our last hearing, we are unable to meet the requirements of 243A to establish 2 dwellings prior to 1959, because this was, as I mentioned, part of the Oak Grove Hotel and therefore was not a residential use. So we spoke with the clients at some length, and what they've chosen to do, and I've discussed this with Ms. Stockman, is they're choosing to remove the cooking facility from the cottage. And I would suggest that any decision be conditioned as such. Without cooking facilities, this structure would no longer constitute a separate dwelling. It would simply serve as accessory space to the primary house. The board could approve this under section 243C, which is what we have applied under, as the modification of a non-conforming structure. We did submit revised floor plans with the stove removed from that cottage. I want to go over some of the changes that were made, the present nonconformities of the cottage. Presently, it's 16.4 feet Forest Ave, where 25 is required. The side yard setback is only 2.5 feet, where 10 is required. The existing lot coverage by structure is 35.9, where 20 is allowed by right, not 25 with a special permit. And the lot coverage by structures, paving, and parking is 62, where 40 is allowed. What we're proposing reduces the cottage from 2 bedrooms to 1, and also would remove the cooking facility, therefore removing that nonconformity of the second dwelling. The side yard setback would be slightly improved from 2.5 to 2.8. The lot coverage by structures would be improved slightly from 35.9 to 35.5. The lot coverage by structures, paving, and parking would be even more slightly reduced by 62 to 61.9. These are minor improvements, but they are improvements nonetheless. The standard for 243C is that, is what's being proposed substantially more detrimental than what exists. Here we have a situation where no new nonconformity will be created. We have improvements to the side yard setback, the lot coverage by structures, the lot coverage by structures, paving, and parking. And I think most importantly, the removal of the nonconforming second dwelling, removing that cooking facility. What's being proposed is in character with the neighborhood. Again, as we discussed at the last hearing, of the 45 nearest properties, 21 had larger gross building areas, 25 had larger footprints, 23% had higher lot coverage by structures. This is certainly in line with the neighborhood. There's no adverse effects to the proposal. We're again reducing existing nonconformities, and it meets the standards of 240-216. Based on this, I believe the board can and should grant the request for a special permit, and I'd be happy to address any questions that you may have at this time.
Thank you, Attorney Gore. And once again, if there's anyone out there who has any question, comment, concern regarding the project, go ahead and use the webinar chat. Please state your full name and address for the record. And we'll turn it over to board questions at this time. Ken, any questions?
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering why you're completely tearing down the old cottage, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Why not just put a sort of cottage-sized addition directly, and then you get around the two structures issue. You got one structure on the existing building.
Maybe I could speak to that. I'm Jill Neubauer from Falmouth, and I'm the architect on the project. Because we had an existing cottage that we set out just to renovate on its existing footprint, and we came to learn that the foundation was a mess, and the cottage was in much worse shape than we understood at the very beginning. The intent was just to put a new cottage there. And I think that because that precedent exists and it's pleasant and they can move between the one building and the other, we didn't ever think to redesign it. We just thought to make a more pleasant Victorian styled cottage that supported the architecture of the existing building and also the Victorian nature of the neighborhood. And because of it, we didn't want to add on to the existing house. It's a nice house. It's well designed the way it is. And so we just felt we would stay with the footprint that we had and modify it a bit. We've made it more interesting. Presently, it's a single rectilinear box with a ranch roof. That's quite aesthetically unfortunate for not only our clients, but for the entire neighborhood, because it's really unpleasant looking and it doesn't have any architectural connection to the Victorian architecture of this area. So we just thought a cottage is sweeter. It doesn't make kind of a bigger extended house. It's a sweeter gesture.
Okay, I just could have gotten around some zoning issues and increased probably your side yard setback and so forth by building off the main structure, but fine.
Anything else, Ken?
No.
Thank you. Ed, any questions?
No questions at this time.
All right. Scott? Scott, any questions?
Sorry, no, I don't have any.
Mary?
No questions.
James?
No questions, thank you.
Bob, did I ask you if there were any questions?
Yeah, so Kevin, just for clarification, so the main house has 4 and then the accessory building will have 1?
Mr. Santos is shaking his head yes, so I'm going to follow that.
Okay, and I just had one other question. So I noticed that you relocated the, cobblestones and everything out of the town roadway and also the fencing.
Mhm.
So when I was by the property, so the way they're parking now, they're parking 2 cars next to each other. So whatever car is on the side is actually also in the town layout. So is there a way to just demarcate them somewhere on site so people know that that's actually the town road layout and they should try to stay clear from that area?
I'm sure that's a possibility as they go through the construction process to have bounds placed.
And then their parking then would still just be limited to what they have, right? You're not suggesting any other parking spaces?
No, I mean, however they want to configure cars on that lot as they see fit, as long as it's on their layout, I think it's fine. But that would be what would be proposed.
And on the area that they put for the reserve, if they have to change the septic system, something like that, does that need a variance?
Yeah, I can answer that. That's Tim Santos from Holmes and McGrath. Yes, anything on this lot, any septic upgrade, whether you modified the cottage or the house, would require a local upgrade approval through the Board of Health.
All right, that's all I have.
All right. And questions that I had were already addressed. So are there any follow-up questions from the board at this time?
May I ask one?
Go right ahead, Scott.
I understand that you guys set yourself up to do a septic upgrade. I just would like to know if there's any consideration by the fact that the area is so constricted, and the neighbors are gonna be affected by the construction. Was there any thought to doing everything at once, so we only disrupt that area one time? I know that and it's not gonna be a requirement by me personally, but was there any discussion because of that? Because I would hate to see a demolition go, a new construction, and then a year later, having to put a Title V septic system in and have to redo everything you've done. I just needed to know if you guys considered that or even discussed that.
I can address some of that, and then I'll let Jill address whether or not it was discussed with the client. The Title V report, Scott, shows a very good system with no signs of any type of hydraulic failure. It's a 1,500 gallon tank and it's a leaching pit.
Yeah.
So, most homeowners aren't going to want to replace the system unless there's an issue. I would say if there was some type of signs of any type of staining or something that might have been mentioned, that I would definitely have brought that up to them. But according to the report, it passed and there were any kind of signs of hydraulic failure or anything. So.
All right. I appreciate it. Thanks, Tim. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Scott. So that addresses your question, Scott?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, just making sure we didn't need to go to anyone else. I am not seeing any public comment in the webinar chat, just so everyone knows. And
Move to close.
move to close by Ken. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Bob. Roll call vote. Ken?
Ken Forman, aye.
Bob?
Robert Dugan, aye.
Ed?
Ed Van Kuren, aye.
Scott?
Scott Zelinski, aye.
And TJ Hurry, aye. So the hearing is closed. How would the board like to proceed?
So I'm willing to do an approval with conditions, but I think we need to get a draft approval done by the administrator, only because this property previously had a special permit on it. There's some information that's in the file that I'm just not prepared to write everything out tonight. So maybe I would propose to draft a positive decision with conditions, to have the administrator start drafting this, and then we could have that submitted to the board for vote at next meeting.
All right, I think that might be appropriate.
Maybe we could just touch on some of the.
Sure, if we could lead her in the right direction. Would anyone like to second that just at the moment?
I'll second.
Scott, thank you, Scott. All right. Bob, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I think we just need to put in some of the findings that they couldn't reach documentation, so they are removing those cooking facilities. So that isn't a second dwelling. We're gonna need to put in there that the current property has driveway, fencing, etc. on the town road layout and the town land. All that will have to be relocated. The cottage is going to be a 1-bedroom cottage, not a 2, and that's so that it will comply with the current septic system that's on site, which is a 5-bedroom. They've submitted a Title V report showing they have a passing 5-bedroom system. They have also shown on site an area for future septic replacement if they needed to do so, although that will need a variance through the health department. In the findings, we should have listed all the current setbacks, lot coverage, etc. of the current and also the proposed. As well as in the findings, the reference to the previous decision. Also put in finding comments from the engineering department on the areas of the property that are in the town road layout that will have to be located. We should also put in there that the due to lot size and parking, the area is extremely limited for parking and construction. So they will need to organize that. And also put in the findings that they were originally trying to modify a permit that currently existed, and now we're doing this as a separate special permit.
All right. Any other findings?
Not for now, unless if the administrator thinks we needed to add something in later, we would just have to review it at our next meeting, before the vote.
Sure. Did you want to add any conditions at this time, Bob?
Yeah, I mean, we should put in that this will be a one-bedroom cottage. It will only be for the accessory use of the main structure. Condition that there shall be no cooking facilities in the one-bedroom structure. Condition that all driveways, fencing, anything that's currently in the town road layout needs to be relocated on site. Because the current width of driveway is also on town site, they should demarcate where the boundary is so that nobody parks over that area.
Hours of construction,
Yeah, we should put in hours of construction.
construction, fencing.
Yeah, it's actually a great idea, construction fencing, because of the area. And also, they're gonna have to organize with, I don't know if they do it at the police department of the town, but basically, that area is pretty much real, again, narrow one-way streets. There's nowhere to park big vehicles, so they'll have to figure out how they can do that and still have flow of traffic.
How about dust control during demolition? I think that falls under the demolition permit, though.
Yep, that would be fine. Dust control. They're also gonna have, subject to dry wells for any of the roof runoff. Again, no runoff towards public rights of way and other properties. It does sit on a slanted lot, so you want to make sure there's no runoff in the properties behind. And that the property is to be used as a single family structure with just an accessory building. It's not a multifamily.
All right. Anything else?
No, unless, I don't know if the administrator has anything she can think of at this time.
And she's indicating no. All right. So that was a motion to direct the zoning administrator to draft a positive motion with some of the conditions that we touched upon tonight. Motion was made by Bob and seconded by Scott. Roll call vote. Ken?
Ken Forman, aye.
Bob?
Robert Dugan, aye.
Ed?
Ed Van Kuren, aye.
Scott?
Scott Zelinski, aye.
And TJ Hurry, aye. So the motion passes unanimously, directing Noreen to draft a positive draft for us to review.
We'll have that for June 25th.
Thank you, Noreen.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Attorney Clower. Everyone on your team tonight. All right. I think it might be appropriate to take a 5-minute break if everyone's in agreement. Sounds good. All right. We will be taking a quick break and we'll get back to the rest of the agenda when we come back. We have the continuation of application 5-20 Noonan, 183 Surf Drive in Falmouth. For the applicant, Attorney Clower.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. If we could elevate Greg Sarunian and also Attorney Kirk will need to be elevated.
Sure. While we're doing that, the voting members on this are myself, Bob, Ed, Mary, and James. And once again, if anyone out there, members of the public, have any questions, comments, concerns regarding this project, go ahead and type in your full name and address into the webinar chat. And type away in there. We will address your questions, comments, concerns, whatever they might be, when the appropriate time comes.
I apologize, Kevin. Who did you say you would like promoted up?
Greg Sarunian and Attorney Kirk will also need to be elevated.
Thank you.
Are we good to go, Mr. Hurry?
Ready when you are, Attorney Clower.
Wonderful, thank you. Hello, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Again, for the record, my name is Kevin Clower. I'm an attorney with Untitled Chapter law firm here in Falmouth, and I represent the applicants, Joseph and Mary Noonan, the owners of 183 Surf Drive. I'd like to offer a brief recap from our previous two hearings. The applicants are seeking permission to raise and rebuild the existing single-family dwelling at the site, which is located between Surf Drive and Seagull Lane. It's a residential C zoning district, and it's located in the VE 15 flood zone. Given the location in the flood zone, the renovations do trigger compliance with the flood zone standards, and the applicant really has no choice but to raise and rebuild. This requires raising the elevation of the structure to 2 feet above the flood zone elevation, which is approximately elevation 17 or 12 feet above grade. This project will require a special permit under both sections 243C and 24069E. The proposed dwelling is non-conforming with a front yard setback of 21 feet, which is to be eliminated. The proposed setback will be 26. The existing non-conforming setback to the 3-foot contour of 9 feet will remain unchanged. The proposed lot coverage by structure is 23.2%. In addition, the applicant is going to be undertaking 1,500 square feet of mitigation planting, which will beautify and protect the resource area. This project has been approved by the Conservation Commission already. What's being proposed is not substantially more detrimental than what currently exists. This is due to its compliance with the flood zone standards, the improvements and protection of the resource areas, and the elimination of the front yard non-conforming setback. Since our last meeting, we have submitted some additional information, which include renderings of the proposed structure in the context of the surrounding properties, as well as solar studies showing shadow impact of the proposed dwelling. We've also submitted some photographs of other nearby dwellings with their calculated ridge heights. Relative to the concerns that have been discussed regarding views and vistas, it's clear that this will be a visible structure. We've never said that it wouldn't be, but it will not negatively impact the views from public ways. What I'm trying to do, and bear with me for 1 second here, is I'm going to pull up those plans, the proposed renderings. So I will share my screen. So what you see here is the proposed rendering of the structure in the context of the surrounding neighborhood. We're given images from Surf Drive, from directly in front of 183 Surf Drive, from in front of 11 Seagull Lane, and in front of 15 Seagull Lane.
Attorney Flower, I'm seeing the Internet Explorer, whatever it might be, saying Zoom on. I'm not sure if anyone else is having that problem.
Yeah, it just says post attendee Zoom.
Okay. Hold on, let me. That's strange. Do you see? Now
There it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have it.
My apologies. That was strange. It was on that. So what we're showing is the, move this, the image from Surf Drive, from the area that goes over Trunk River, an image of the structure directly in front of 183 Surf Drive, an image of the structure standing outside of 11 Seagull Lane, and then an image of the structure taking in front of 15 Seagull Lane. And on the last one, I think you'll see that it's not even visible at that point. It is a proposal that is in line with the surrounding properties. The concerns that have been expressed by the owner of 11 Seagull Lane, Ms. Arquise, are positioned as though they're in the spirit of a neighborhood concern. However, these concerns are relevant only to her as the abutter directly to the rear. To the contrary, I think the neighbors support this. The board has consistently taken the position that they have not protected private views. Ms. Arquise does not hold a view easement, and she previously contested the permitting for 199 Surf Drive on the same grounds, being the same concern for her view. She's seemingly of the opinion that she's entitled to a water view, but no one else is. Despite this, and I think this is instructive on the renderings, you'll see that Ms. Arquise will still have a very considerable view over Trunk River, Surf Drive, and Vineyard Sound. It should be noted that if the Noonans sought only to reconstruct their existing house, similar size, but raised it to meet the flood zone elevations, to comply with those flood zone requirements, the resulting structure would have a much worse effect on the view held by Ms. Arquise. We previously submitted a lot comparison worksheet showing the lot size, footprint, and gross building area, because these are the standards the board has consistently used to evaluate the size and height of the structure relative to the size and height of the structures in the neighborhood, which is the standard in 240-69E. I'm not aware of a situation where the board's chosen to disregard certain properties and not accessed off the same street. I think to say that the houses in front of this on Surf Drive are not part of the same neighborhood is not a compelling argument. I think that this is an area that is really tied together. Of those 26 dwellings that we did show the lot comparison for, stop here. 8 of them had higher gross building areas and 7 had larger footprints. We did also submit those photographs of 25 Seagull Lane, 17 Seagull Lane, 15 Seagull Lane, 11 Seagull Lane, 181 Surf Drive, 189 Surf Drive, and 199 Surf Drive, which I'd be happy to show.
Yeah, could you pull up the map just showing where those properties are?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I'm going to have to use the GIS map, so bear with me. So what we are looking at is the GIS map of the immediately surrounding property. And we submitted the photographs of the properties at 19 Seagull Lane, 15 Seagull Lane, 11 Seagull Lane, 181 Surf Drive, 189 Surf Drive, 199 Surf Drive. So three houses to the south, 3 houses to the north. And of the 7 nearest properties, 4 are built of similar size and similar manner to what's being proposed, including the home of Ms. Arquise. In just the last few years, the properties at 181, 189, and 199 Surf Drive have all been raised and rebuilt in order to comply with those flood zone standards. More will be required to do so as we move forward. Just 2 weeks ago, this board approved a similar proposal at 335 Surf Drive, essentially the same neighborhood, same proposed height. And there was no real question as to whether or not it was a good project because it was an improvement over the existing situation. It was improvement to the flood zone standards. I think that we have to look at the totality of the situation here. We have a significant improvement to the property. We have an elimination of a non-conforming front yard setback. Their compliance with the FEMA guidelines and the building code for flood zone construction, which really isn't an option. We're improving the vegetation in the resource areas. The project's in line with the neighborhood, and it's supported by a number of neighbors. The proposal is not substantially more detrimental than what exists. As I noted, Ms. Arquiz's concerns are relative exclusively to her. She's the sole abutter that's opposed. She's similarly opposed other projects in the past, and based only on her concerns over potential diminution of her view, a view that she believes is hers and hers alone. We've submitted support letters by the owners of 199 Surf Drive, which is located right here, the owner of 15 Seagull Lane, which is located just up north of Ms. Arquiz, the owners of 185 Surf Drive, which is located right here, and the owner of 123 Bywater Court, which is located right across the river. We have one abutter in opposition. One. At least 4 of the other closest abutters are in full support. I believe that the applicant has been able to address the questions that this board has posed to them. I believe that the board has the information that they require in order to approve the special permit, and I believe the board should do so. I'd be happy to address any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Attorney Clower. And once again, if anyone out there has any question, comments, concerns regarding the project, go ahead and type in your full name and address into the webinar chat, and we will get that addressed shortly. Attorney Clower's memory serves me, I think Attorney Kirk represented an immediate abutter on this project. And we did allow him a portion of time to speak on this last time. Would the board be so inclined to hear from Attorney Kirk at all?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Attorney Kirk, how much time would you need?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. I just
Okay.
want to first hear how long you might need.
I
And
hope,
then just to keep things orderly, I want a quick roll call vote to afford you the time.
yes, all lawyers say they'll be brief, but I don't expect to take more than 5 minutes.
Very good. So would anyone like to make a motion to hear from Attorney Kirk for 5 minutes?
So a motion to allow Attorney Kirk 5 minutes for his presentation.
Second.
All right.
Second.
Motion, right. Motion was made by Bob and seconded by James. Quick roll call vote. Bob?
Robert Dugan, aye.
James?
James Morse, aye.
Ed?
Ed Van Kuren, aye.
Mary?
Mary Berry I.
And TJ Hurry, aye. Attorney Kirk, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. I learned today that I don't have a camera on my computer, and that's why I'm not able to get up on the big screen.
Don't worry, we can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, okay, thank you. I have a face that was made for radio in any event. We're not against other people having water views. No, not at all. This is just a situation where we have a very small lot, 7,500 square feet, and the neighborhood consists of similar sized lots of much smaller structures than what is proposed here. And the standard has to be the special permit standards plus the question of whether it's substantially more detrimental. This structure is going to move closer to the river, the 3-foot contour. It's not coming closer than 9 feet, where it is now, but because it's pivoting, a different section of the structure is going to move to that 9-foot line. So there really is a further encroachment, although it doesn't go beyond the pre-existing line. And I think that's not in keeping with the intent of the bylaw, especially where, with respect to that section, it says there shall be no construction any closer than 30 feet. There was comment made the last time, I think Member Dugan was bringing up the fact that, this is really the Sunset, the Seagull Lane neighborhood. Some of the other structures are out on Surf Drive. 181 Surf Drive is an 11,000 square foot lot, and that's located 24 feet from the river. And I think that was rebuilt as a result of a fire. So there are different circumstances and different facts on each of these different lots and different permits. And if you focus on this one, I think you will be able to conclude that it will be substantially more detrimental, or that the applicant can't show that it is not. Mrs. Arquise is not just standing up for herself, but she's concerned that this will really be the beginning of the end of that particular neighborhood. She opposed another structure that was one of the original lots that she and her husband owned and developed, and understanding that the height situation was a very important consideration in the value of these small lots. They imposed a series of restrictions that there would not be an increase in height above what was there at the time people purchased. And she was standing up for that principle on the one of the other lots that was eventually, there was an increase in height. And that's because the private restriction had expired. But it's always been an element with respect to that neighborhood, and it's still an important. So I think everything that I've given you 3 memoranda, pictures, and so forth, and I won't go into the details of those. You've been very kind, giving us an opportunity to be heard, and most of the other information that I'd want you to be aware of is already in that those memoranda, and I'm sure you'll keep them in mind. So the only other question I had at the end is, sorry, Mr. Foreman isn't here. I wondered if that was his dining room that he was sitting in, or where that backdrop came from. It's the most impressive backdrop I've seen since this whole pandemic television experience began, and I was very interested to find out what that was.
So
That's all I have to say.
thank you very much, Attorney Kirk, and to answer that part of your question, if he did have the same backdrop, I think it was Trinity College in Dublin. If he had the same backdrop.
Right. Very good.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you for your time, Attorney Kirk, and you were under by a minute, so thank you for the brevity.
That's unusual.
All right, turning it to board questions. Let's see, Bob, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Ed, any questions?
No, not at this time.
James, any questions?
Not at this time.
Mary, anything?
No questions.
Attorney Kirk, the height restrictions that you were referring to, were those were deed restrictions essentially?
Yes, they were in the deeds to certain parcels that Mr. and Mrs. Arquise sold to various owners.
And have those restrictions expired under Mass General Law at all, or are they still in effect?
I believe they've expired. The issue has never been challenged. They were part of a common scheme to benefit everybody, but if you look at the statute on its face, it would appear that they've expired.
Okay. So your client's arguing more the spirit of the original deeds itself rather than their legality at this point?
That's right. We're not saying that there's a legally binding prohibition which they could enforce in court.
Very good. Thank you, Attorney Kirk. Attorney Clower, to Attorney Kirk's points, and I believe it was originally brought up by Bob Dugan regarding what we should consider the neighborhood to be. He mentioned some of the basically the difference between Seagull Lane and Surf Drive. Are you aware of what the floodplain is extending out to Surf Drive and those other properties that you mentioned?
Yep, that is the floodplain from this property through Well, I have the GIS up, so we can answer that definitively rather than
Sounds good.
speculation. I do want to clarify one issue, Mr. Hurry, and that is there was never a deed restriction on this property, and I can actually show you the properties that the deed restriction was on. So it is a VE 15 from the middle of Miss Arquiza's lot down through Surf Drive. And that is true of all the southern lots at the end of Seagull Lane and abutting Surf Drive. I believe these four houses here, which would be 10 Seagull, 374 Mill, 386 Mill, and 199 Surf Drive, were the properties that were subject to the deed restriction. That other way, were the properties that were subject to the deed restriction, which expired some probably 5 years ago. These four lots, which came out of a common lot at some point, 181, 189, 185, and 183 Surf Drive, were not subject to that restriction. And again, just furthering the point of the neighborhood, these four lots came from the same lot. They were developed and then subdivided at the same time. So I think, just looking at the proximity of the houses, I think it's tough to argue that those houses are not part of the same neighborhood.
All right. Thank you, Attorney Clower. Any other follow-up questions from the board at this time? All right, not seeing it.
I guess just one quick question. So even those deed restrictions probably have expired, what was the main purpose of them?
I mean, I can certainly offer my speculation as to what it was, and it was that Miss Arquiz had a house that was substantially taller than the other houses around it at the time, and it preserved their view.
Okay, thank you.
May I be heard on that?
Go ahead, Attorney Kirk.
Yeah. I think it was a common, what they call a common scheme in the good sense. It was designed to protect the value of a number of other houses to the rear of that, not just Mrs. Arquiz. You've got these small lots. It was the time of maybe a summer colony, and the ability to have an unobstructed view, that spectacular view that is there, was a very important selling point to people wanting to buy on the lots on Seagull Lane. So it wasn't just for her benefit. It was for a number of all those houses. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, Bob?
No, that's it. Thank you.
All right, and I am not seeing any public comment in the webinar chat. Any other follow-up questions from the board?
I have one, Mr. Chairman, just for the purpose of the record, to Attorney Kirk. Is it fair to say that the common scheme predated the existing federal flood regulations?
Yes, I think that's correct.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
All right, anything else? All right, if the board's satisfied with everything that we've heard.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I've made this request in the past, but if we could, if the board be willing to have a discussion prior to closing, I think it would be beneficial.
All right, thank you, Attorney Clower. All right, so prior to closing, does anyone want to start a discussion? And again, it's
I understand the needs in the flood zone, and it needs to meet the federal guidelines and go up. My concerns haven't changed regarding 242-16 on neighborhood character. And you drive into this area, and the only access to this property is off of Mill through Seagull. And when you come into that area, what stands out as being out of character are those houses that were just mentioned on Surf Drive. I understand the need to go up, and I know that you're looking at cost issues, and it's easier to go up 2 stories versus what they have now. But I have a real concern with that. And, Mr. Kirk's mention of also relocating that nonconformity setback to a different location actually closer to the water, I've got some concern with that too. Access to this house is hard to get to. You've got a very, I mean, I don't know what the exact square footage of actually frontage on Seagull Lane, but I would tend to maybe 12 feet or so. I mean, an engineer or something could correct me or not, but it's difficult access in there. And my worry is that if all these properties keep going up to whatever their maximum allowable square footage is in bulk, that you're changing the character of the entire area down there. So, I mean, I don't know how the rest of the board feels, and I don't want to, hold out somebody's project, but the concerns that I have on this, I just would be a no on the project.
Thank you, Bob.
If I could address, I think the concern relative to Seagull Lane, I do think it's helpful to, and I'm going to share my screen again, to look at some of the houses along Seagull Lane. So the houses that are on the river's edge on Seagull Lane, 11, 15, 19. So these are larger structures that are probably not compliant with the 2014 flood zone standards, but certainly the standards before that, 15 Seagull especially. You've got houses that are, much higher than the surrounding houses. And I think if you look at, again, the GIS map, this house, these three houses here are elevated. 11 is elevated, 15 is elevated, 19 is elevated. I think that it is, this house is not the house that's changing the character of the neighborhood. This house is staying in character with the neighborhood. And as I mentioned previously, if they were to take the same exact footprint and to build on that footprint in its exact location, the resulting change would be, the result of that, I think, would be much more detrimental to Ms. Arquez. And I also would say that the change to the point about the setback to the river, we're not coming any closer to the river. I think that is a misstatement. We're maintaining the exact same 9.2 foot setback. And that is, so there is also a setback on the other side. It is not coming closer to the river than exists today. It's coming a little further south, but it is not by any means closer.
I'd like to also comment on that. Greg Cernium, the record, Rescom Architectural. I thought maybe Tim Santos was going to join us, but one of the things that Holmes and McGrath had presented to conservation for their approval was, although we were maintaining the setback, we did a square footage analysis of how much of the building previously was within that setback versus the proposed. And it was either, can't remember exactly, I don't have the drawing with me, but it was either matching the same square footage or it was actually less. And that wasn't something that was presented to the conservation.
Mr. Santos was just elevated as a member.
I guess the issue that I keep having that I'm going back and forth with is, and I understand that the homes directly on Surf Drive in the one in back, but when you're driving into the neighborhood and you go by 10, 16, 22, 350 mil, 360 mil, 374, 386, if you drive in now just with the houses that are rebuilt on Surf Drive, you come into a neighborhood that looks like it's bordered by a wall of structures. And it just doesn't seem to incorporate into the area. And I think that's my biggest issue down there is that, when these structures are going up and they have to go up, I understand with the floodplain, you have to go that 12, you have to go that 15 feet. But then when you're adding a second floor on top of that elevation, that has a huge effect on the visual character of a neighborhood. And when we're looking at these, 240, 216 on the visual character, and I'm just not looking at it as a view issue, it just seems out of place. I mean, the houses on Surf Drive don't look like they're part of this neighborhood. They look like all of a sudden there's a conglomerate on Surf Drive. So that's the biggest issue I'm having, is to come to terms with how this meets the neighborhood character under the bylaw. I know that, Ms. Arcee's and how we've looked at it in the past with people's, view rights, and I'm not even going into the view right issue at this point. I just don't think it fits the area character. And when you see the renderings that were added in, and I appreciate the renderings you put in, to me, that stands out even more, especially when you're looking at it coming from the Surf Drive area. It seems all of a sudden on these very small lots, you have this very, 4 or 5 dense structures that almost look like they're encompassing one structure as you start to come down the street. And I just think it starts to really affect these neighborhoods. And there isn't a lot of thought being brought into how it is changing the characters of the area. It's more of how much, how high can we go? What can we fit on the site? What's our maximum, coverage we can do? What's our maximum height? The design of the building, I think, is very nice. I think one of the ones on Surf Drive, which I don't remember the name, but the first one on Surf Drive that borders the Herringbrook is a little different design than the other 2 properties, and has a little less effect than the other 2 properties on the corner. But I'm just having a really hard time coming to terms how this will not change the character of the neighborhood. How even though it's trying to be elevated and fit the flood code, how it's actually trying to stay within some kind of a character in the area versus trying to blend in with the 2 or 3 houses on Surf Drive.
Well, I think that the renderings, and again, beauty is very much the eye of the beholder. But I think if you're looking at the rendering from Seagull Lane, what we're seeing here is a row of consistent houses. We have 11 Seagull Lane, we have 183 Surf Drive, and 181 Surf Drive in front of it. And I think if you look from even further back along 15 Seagull Lane, you've got 15, 11, you don't even see 183 Surf Drive as proposed. And then you'd have the houses in front of that.
But on the photos that are presented, they're being presented from one angle down the road. For some reason, it seems like anything coming in from the main road is being bypassed in all the presentation. And I don't know if I'm assuming that's just an oversight and no one doing it on purpose, but you don't get a picture of the neighborhood from the angles of these photos. If you come in from, I don't know if you have anything from coming in off of Mill, but when you come in off of Mill, it looks like a completely different area than if you're directly on Surf Drive.
So I think that even, if we just look at the GIS map here, as you're coming in off Mill, yes, these houses along Mill Road are smaller, but all these houses along the back stretch of the river, 25, 19, 15, 11, 183, 181, are larger. The only one that's not a larger structure is 183 right now. It's the only one that's out of character.
See, what I would say is right now, 183 and 185 are in character with the neighborhood. If you go in and if you drive in there from Mill and doing the whole turn, 183 and 185 seem in character with the neighborhood. The ones that don't are 181, 189, and 199, the 3 that you're giving on Surf Drive. And actually 181 is a little bigger lot. So at least it doesn't encompass much of the site. But I think the ones that are affecting the neighborhood right now are the ones on that front Surf Drive, 199 and 189.
I think that we've shown that there are much larger houses along Seagull Lane. 15, 11, 19 are larger houses, 15 especially. I think that, we understanding that, it's not, we're looking at an average of a neighborhood and we're looking at an overall effect. I don't think the addition of this particular structure changes that effect, especially because it is currently surrounded by 3 abutters that are also elevated structures. But I don't mean to get into any sort of tete-a-tete, and I certainly understand what you're saying. I'm just and the rationale.
No, and I understand. It's just that's just so you know, that's the issue I'm having, and the other members may not have an issue with that at all. So you may want to hear from the other members and see what their opinions are.
All right, and we'll do just that. Let's see, Ed, what's your opinion?
I'd go along for jacking it up the neighbors that are real close to it have said they were for it, and it's inevitable. Sooner or later, it's got to go up. So I'd say go for it.
All right, so you'd be in favor of the project as proposed right now?
Yes,
All right.
yes.
And so, sorry for being redundant. I'm just trying to keep track of everything virtually here.
Clarity.
Let's see. Mary, how do you feel?
I would be against it.
Okay. And I'm assuming that's for the reasons that Bob stated, or do you have anything different?
I think he pretty much captures it as well as what was stated by the
Okay.
lawyer.
Thank you, Mary. James, what's your opinion?
I would be in favor of approval. I always like to give great deference to abutters, but I think what's primarily driving this is the FEMA regulations. I think I differ a little bit about the neighborhood. I mean, there's always a little bit of creep about neighborhood changing, more so post FEMA regulations. I grew up in the Heights. The Heights that I grew up in 78 to 83 is not the Heights that we see today. It's just kind of the natural progression of things as people come down here and make use of their homes. I think that the character of the neighborhood tipped years ago as these buildings went up. I'd be in favor of approval.
All right, thank you, James. And we do have a late submission for public comment. It's from Frank Stepien from 185 Surf Drive. He says all houses on Surf Drive are going up. The homes behind them are one story. The character of the area is changing because of the flood zones. And just to echo Mr. Stepien's point and other comments that the board members have made tonight, the board has struggled with these FEMA regulations. We've seen it all over, specifically Surf Drive and other areas of town where the houses are going up. And Bob, like you said, it seems like a lot of these applications, they do ask for the highest they can go, as large as they can go with bulk, which is something that we consider. I mean, this project taken as a whole, I find it a little gratuitous, seeing what's there existing and what's proposed now.
And again, my comment, I do understand the flood zone, so don't get me wrong. I know
of course.
I know they have to go up, but I would be more in favor of this if the current house went up as a single story than going up with a story above.
All right. Attorney Clower, was there any consideration to scaling the project down a little bit and maybe a story and a half and cutting down on the overall height and anything at all?
Well, I mean, the issue is we're already coming up to, a pretty substantial amount for the flood zone regulations, and there's no arguing that. And as I mentioned, this is to be the applicant's primary home. So we understand that it is an increase in the gross building area of the building, but it's one that's not out of line with the neighborhood. It's looking back at the permitting that was done at 199 Surf Drive, that was a much larger increase. Looking at what was done at 117 Surf Drive, there was a much larger increase in overall usage. 189 Surf Drive didn't require a special permit because they were at 20%, but that was a much larger increase. It is a situation where the cost analysis of raising a house to go one story simply doesn't work, because between the construction costs and the resulting value in the property, it just doesn't make sense to do. So when you have people that have to undertake this really exorbitant and not insignificant expense, they, I don't think they're looking to necessarily maximize, but they want to build a house that works. This is a house that is very much in line with the surrounding properties, and including some of the houses that have been there for a while. I think that to Mr. Steppian's point, to the point that Mr. Morris has made, this is a changing neighborhood, and the idea is that we want them to meet these flood zone requirements. And by saying if you've only got a one-story house, you can only end up with a one-story house, even after you elevate, people simply aren't going to comply. And the idea is that, as that's why we have these triggering events, these substantial improvements, because we want people to comply, so that if there's a storm, these houses aren't being destroyed. They're not becoming flotsam and jetsam and wrecking havoc up and down river, up and downstream. They're going to be built to withstand the storms, and it is something that we need. So I think to say, well, if you do it, you can only do it one story because that's all you have right now. It's a disincentive to people, and it makes it much more difficult for this to occur, which is what we want.
And no doubt, I do agree with you on the points of, coming up to FEMA regs, but again, just, a lot of these projects, and I just come back to the word gratuitous, they seem to be asking for a lot more than what was previously existing on the property. I think this project is one of them. And at the same time, I am sympathetic, and the board reviews a lot of these projects under the FEMA regs and going up in height and what we should consider. But if the project was scaled down and any sort of amount there, and I'm not saying myself just build it one story and send it up to the FEMA regs, but if it was cut down at all with the amount of mass, the bulk, or even cutting down a little bit on the second floor there, I'd be on board with that.
I would only just point out that we did submit the law comparison worksheet, and I will share briefly. And as we look at it, there are a number of buildings in the area that do have larger gross building areas. It is by no means an outlier. I believe I said there were eight of the buildings within this radius have higher gross building areas. It is an increase over what is there. There is no question about that. But part of that is due to the necessity of compliance, and it is while larger than what exists, I don't think it is. I don't think gratuitous is necessarily the right word. I think it is realistic. But again, that is a discretionary and subjective matter.
All right. So, I mean, as it stands now, you have two members positively in favor. I'd be in favor if the project was cut down a little bit, and I guess from two members would be an absolute no at this point.
Well, I'm going to have to go ahead and ask for continuance because I need to speak with my client and assess what the options are.
All right. I guess to the two members of the board that said absolutely no at this point, would anything, and Attorney Clara, I'm trying to help you out.
I appreciate it very much.
Help the board out as well in terms of scheduling and all that. Would anything at all turn you in favor of the project, whether it's scaled down at all, and if so, to what point?
If they scaled it down, I'd relook at it. I'm still stuck at once you start going over that one story, and I understand it's a cost-effective issue. So I don't know if that's something they're even willing to do. I don't know what a story and a half might look like, roof line change, but the issue that you get into is that even when you're going over some of these bulk calculations and some of these lots are higher, visually that's emphasized, tenfold when you put it up in the air. It stands out. So, if they want to see what they can scale it down to and submit that, I would look at it and see if that would fit better in the area. But I think you have to start looking at this going in from the actual neighborhood and not looking at it just from the Surf Drive side. I think that's where it is. If you're just looking from that direction, yeah, there's a couple houses and they're big. But in my opinion, those Surf Drive houses are not part of the Seagull Lane neighborhoods are easily divisible visually when you go in them. It's not too hard to see what the differences are. And, I'd look at it if it was scaled down, but it would have to be scaled down.
Thank you, Bob. Mary, do you have anything to offer if you could be swayed if the project was modified in any sort of way?
Well, I don't know. What we have before us is what we have before us. And so that's what I am basing my comments upon. People can submit different applications. If I were to vote right now on this application, it would be a no.
Thank you, Mary. All right. Attorney Clower, I try to get as much comment from the board as possible for you.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it very much. I'll have to have a conversation with my client about what they'd like to do. But I think, rather than take a denial and rather than withdraw at this point, I think we'll have to request a continuance.
I think that's fair enough. In terms of a date, I'll just defer to Noreen in terms of.
We'd be looking at July 9.
Thank you, Noreen. Would anyone like to make that motion then? Oh, Bob, you're muted. I think you're trying to make that motion.
So I'll make a motion to continue to July 9th so that Mr. Clow will have time to talk to his clients and see if they want to revise the current plans.
I'll second the motion.
All right, so the motion to continue to July 9th was made by Bob and seconded by James. Roll call vote. Bob?
Robert Dugan, aye.
James?
James Morse, aye.
Ed?
Ed Van Kuren, aye.
Mary?
Mary Berry, aye.
And TJ Hurry. That is continued to July 9th. Thank you, Attorney Clower.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kirk, for your presentation as well.
Oh, and Attorney Kirk, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, up next we have the continuation of application 78-19 Buzzards Bay Development LLC, 40 Shore Street in Falmouth. The voting members on this are myself, Bob Dugan, Ed Van Kuren, and Mary Berry.
Stepping out, Mr. Chairman, having recused previously.
James, as James said, he previously recused on this project. And Attorney Clower, just a matter of housekeeping. Believe we asked for an execution of an extension of time at the last hearing.
I have it here.
You have it right there?
I have it here. I'm happy to submit it. I just haven't had a chance to bring that over to the ZBA.
All right. It's signed?
It is.
All right. Do you have anyone that you need to elevate for this?
Yes, if you could, Mark Bogosian, Matt Costa, and Matt Terry.
All right. Attorney Clower, whenever you're ready. I think everyone's here.
Great. Thank you. Again, Kevin Clower, attorney with Untitled Clower Law Firm here in Falmouth. I represent the applicant, Buzzards Bay Development, LLC. I'm joined tonight by Mark Bogosian, the principal of Buzzards Bay Development, my colleague Matthew Terry, and Matt Costa of Cape and Islands Engineering. As you know, we are seeking a comprehensive permit for the development of 40 Shore Street under Chapter 40B of the Massachusetts General Laws. We proposed 8 units, which as it stands today is currently 5 4-bedrooms and 3 3-bedrooms. I
Attorney
did
Clara,
have-
my apologies if I could interrupt you. It is 9:30, and this is the first time in a very long time that I've actually caught this. The board's business typically ends at 9:30, and we would need a vote to extend the meeting. So does anyone want to make that motion?
Yeah, so I'll make a motion right now to extend to 9:45, and then we can revisit it again at 9:45.
Very good.
Second it.
All right, so the motion continue was made by Bob and second by Ed to 9:45. Roll call vote. Bob?
Robert Dugan, aye.
Ed?
Ed Van Kuren, aye.
Mary?
Mary Berry I.
Scott?
Scott Zelinski, aye.
And TJ Hurry, aye. Attorney Clara, my apologies for that, but it's something I haven't
apologies
been
at all.
catching recently.
No apologies needed at all. I did have a question, but I suppose it's a moot point now since Mr. Foreman has left. At the April 9th meeting, it was noted that Mr. Foreman had only missed one meeting and could still be a voting member if he had reviewed the one he had missed. So I was going to inquire as to if that had happened, but since he's not here tonight, that is no longer an option. So following the last meeting, we did submit a complete set of revised plans, both floor plans and architecturals. The plans were revised. As was noted at the last meeting, we had added a fourth bedroom to building 3. We corrected the cover sheet of total square footage for the structures. We did remove a 2-car garage from building 7. One 2-car garage does remain at building 5. We've also previously made a number of changes to address the board's concerns and questions. We've relocated the driveway. We have reduced the patios on a number of the buildings. We've modified and reduced the parking court. We have submitted correspondence to engineering and water addressing their comments. And, we are in a situation where that we've discussed at length, where we are, what we're proposing is well below what's considered a reasonable return. It's which is as much as 20% or with a floor of 15. And when that return is lower than 15, which for us is 10.74, that becomes the minimum. And conditions that lower that return further are considered uneconomic. We are trying to make the changes we can, but have to realize that this project can't proceed if it just doesn't make sense. At the last hearing, Mr. Dugan did ask why a fourth bedroom had been added to building 3, which had been discussed at length on April 9th. I reviewed the video, and in my letter to the board last week, provided citations of the specific moments of discussion. I've said this before, this is, the town is well short of their affordable inventory. We should be encouraging responsible and appropriate 40B development, not turning it away because a unit might be 3 bedrooms rather than 2, or because an affordable unit is slightly smaller, or an affordable, a market rate unit rather has a 2-car garage when an affordable doesn't. When the guidelines allow for those things, subjective desire and the opinions shouldn't be the controlling factors. Otherwise, we end up with something like a Liberty Green, which is just in the face of what town should want or need, and it's not what the public wants. I've also said this before, this is a good project. It's received support from the abutters, the neighborhood, and the Affordable Housing Committee. The applicants worked really hard with everyone to try to get this thing to a point where it's something that people like, and it's a good project. The applicant wants to proceed and needs to move on, but my fear is that if in making the changes the board desires, it reaches a point where it's simply not economic, and profitability will require a denser project. In trying to meet the board's desires, we're going to have to be disregarding the neighborhood impact and the neighborhood input. We really hope that the plans were submitted are match what the board is looking for. We've done as much as we can, I think, to try to accommodate this. But we're at a point where the numbers, the numbers need to work, and these additional changes, that just keep picking away at it, make it get to a point where it can't. We think it's a really good project, and we think that it's one that fits the neighborhood. You've all done a number of 40B hearings, and more often than not, you've got a number of people there opposing them, even at the third, fourth, fifth, sixth meeting, we had a few people come the first night that had questions. There's been no one in opposition since then. You don't see that with 40B projects. This is a rarity. It's a good project that makes sense. You know, I'd be happy to address any questions the board has. But you know, I think the plans, you know, speak for themselves in a large way.
Thank you, Attorney Clower. And just a couple of things before we turn to board comment or anything like that. First of all, if there's anyone out there who does have public comment, you can use the webinar chat. Please use your name, full name and address for the record, and type in whatever question, comment, concern you might have. Attorney Clower did mention Liberty Green, and I'll just remind the board that that was the topic of executive session earlier tonight. And of course, we're not allowed to discuss anything regarding that project or any discussion that we may have had during executive session.
So, Mr. Chairman, I just want to make one statement for clarification, just to get out of the way. So, the last hearing we had on this project, there was intensive discussion that the addition of the fourth bedroom was specific because I had requested change. I didn't think I had requested a change, but there was lots of discussion over it. There was also public comment on it. I have reviewed all the minutes of the meeting, and I just want to say that I never requested a fourth bedroom. And I just want to make sure that the applicant and the public is clear on that the information regarding that at the last meeting was incorrect.
Thank you, Bob. And just to that point, I'll fall on my sword as chairman of the board. I know that that meeting in question, it did run very late. We extended time to accommodate for the hearing, and usually at the end of the hearing, if we end up continuing a hearing, and if the board has any concerns regarding the project that we want to address, typically we inform the applicant exactly what that is. I don't think that was properly conveyed, so I blame myself for that. So my apologies for that, Attorney Clower and your team. So Bob, you got nothing to worry about there.
No apologies necessary, Mr. Chair and Mr. Dugan. You know, there was I don't mean to. I certainly don't mean to put words in your mouth that didn't come out. That's an odd way of saying that. It's late. It's my fourth hearing. I apologize. You know, what I'm trying to say is I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. My interpretation of that was different, and I apologize if you feel as though I've misportrayed that. That's certainly not mine.
Attorney Clower, for the benefit of the board, could you pull up, and I guess everyone at home too, could you pull up the site plan?
Yes.
For the revised site plan? Mm-hmm. And could you just walk us through building by building what's proposed in each, the bedroom count, I'm sorry, it is getting late. The proposed garages and whatever else that was changed.
1 second, I'm just
Go right ahead.
So what we're looking at is the here, and so there's been a number of changes that have happened over the course of the last 6 months or so. Building 1 has gotten larger. There's correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, there's living space above the garage. The garage was added to that building based on board comments. And living space was added above that to increase the square footage of that lot. So that is a 3-bedroom home with a 1-car garage. And building 2 is also a 1-car garage. It is also a 3-bedroom home. Building 3 is a 4-bedroom home. That's where the 4th bedroom was added. There's been some changes to the dormers in the 2nd floor space to accommodate that. And that is also a 1-car garage. Building 4 is a 1-car garage. That is also a 3-bedroom. building 5. And let me just confirm that. Building 5 is a 4-bedroom home with a 2-car garage. And that is the only 2-car garage on the site at this point. Buildings 6, 7, and 8 all share this motor court here. They're all single-car garages as well. So I don't know what just happened there. Building 6 is a 4-bedroom home, and as is Building 7. And Building 8 is a 3-bedroom home. There's been some architectural tweaks to a lot of these plans that I probably can't enumerate all of the changes on those, but those were largely done to just increase the usability of the second floor.
Thank you for that, Attorney Clower. And you did hit upon the points that I wanted to review. And you said buildings 6 and 7, were those 4 bedrooms, you said?
Yes, buildings 5, it's buildings
6 and 7?
Yes, 6 and 7 are, yeah. It's 3, 5, 6, and 7 that are 4 bedrooms as proposed.
3, 5, 6, and 7. And out of the entire lot, did you designate which ones are affordable yet?
I mean, you know, as we've discussed with Ms. Stockman, there is Mass Housing does retain some right to assign that, but we are proposing buildings 1 and 3 as being affordable.
All right. So, and 1 is a 3-bed and 3 is a 4-bedroom?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for that.
And Mr. Clower, can you tell us on building 1 and 3, the 2 affordable units, how those square footages compare to the market rate units?
Sure. Unit 1 is the smallest of the units. It is 1,700 square feet, but it is also the historic structure. So we're trying to maintain that structure, the shell of that structure at least. The interior will all be gutted, of course. Building 2,300 square feet. The market rate units vary between 21, 22, and 2,600 square feet.
And again, what was unit 3?
2,300. Yes. Yeah, there was square footage added to both units 1 and 3, based on comments from the board.
Were there square footages added to any of the other buildings?
No.
Any other questions, Bob?
No, not at this time.
All right. Ed, any questions?
No, I had no more.
Mary, any questions?
No questions at this time.
Thank you, Mary. And once again, if there's anyone out there who has any public comment, question, or concern, type in your name and address into the webinar chat and we will address it. All right. Any sort of follow-up questions from the board at this point?
Not here.
All right. And thank you to Ashley for reminding me 9:45 is coming up in 1 minute. Would anyone like to make a motion to extend the night?
So I'll make a motion to go to 10, but I don't want to go beyond 10.
Second.
And to extend the meeting until 10 o'clock. That was made by Bob and seconded by Ed. Roll call vote. Bob?
Robert Dugan, aye.
Ed?
Ed Van Kuren, aye.
Mary?
Very aye.
And TJ Hurry, aye. All right, so we're going until 10 o'clock. And thank you, Ashley, again for the reminder. All right, and any sort of follow-up questions from the board?
Not at this time.
Okay,
If I can ask a point of order, because I always get tripped up on this. My understanding is with a comprehensive permit, it's a simple majority vote. And I guess this is to Ms. Stockman. And so on a 4-member board, it's a simple majority of the members sitting. So we'd be looking for three votes. Is that correct, Ms. Stockman?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Hurry, if I may ask the same ask I made at the last hearing, if the board would consider having a discussion prior to closing, I think it would be beneficial for everyone.
thank you, Attorney Clower. And I think just the virtual world that we're in, and I think it is a cleaner way of doing things rather than taking multiple votes. So if the board would like to have any discussion, anyone want to start us off?
Well, I've seen they've made modifications specifically to the garages. I think everyone's going to have to review this again before they discuss whatever their decision is. My comments on the garages have never changed. I've dealt with enough of these 40Bs at this point, and I know what the differences are when you see certain units that stand out from other units. And I still think they should all have single-car garages. I know the applicant did submit a letter into the file for a local real estate agent, giving a letter in support on what she thought losses might be monetarily to the garages. I just saw that this evening. I'm not in complete agreement with the letter, but I will review it again. You know, the administrator had discussed with us before what she thought the opinions would be of mass housing, on what they look at bedrooms, etc. And I think that's something that the board also has to review. If we don't get any further information at this point, the board will have to decide. And I would suggest to close the hearing, continue to the next hearing for a full board discussion of the project, of where we stand and what it is, and then make some kind of a motion how to go forward with it, to drafting a decision. But I think we've gotten pretty much all the information we're going to get. You know, there's been enough back and forth at this point. You make bits and pieces here and there. I think the board has to be, you know, make sure they're familiar with everything that's currently in the plan. And then once they are familiar with everything that's in the plan that's currently in front of us, have a discussion on where they stand decision-wise, and then go forward from there.
All right, thank you, Bob. Ed, how do you feel?
I feel the same way. Let's do it and hurry up and get out of it.
All right. Mary?
Yeah, I agree. I'm not willing at this point tonight to discuss it. I would suggest it would be nice to have it earlier in the evening.
We've all been hanging in there, Mary. All right, so Bob, you're proposing continuing, oh, and you're on mute.
So what I would propose is we close the hearing this evening for submittals and public comment. We have all the information we've gotten up to date. We continue to the next date for a full discussion, so the members review everything that's currently there. We have all the updated information. And then at the end of the discussion, we decide how to go forward and draft the decision.
All right.
I would recommend that you select an additional date. You're already pretty heavily scheduled for the 25th and then the 9th. I will need a little bit of time to start drafting a decision. I'd be eyeing, say, July 2. I don't know how people's plans look.
So if we close the hearing tonight, what would you suggest? July 2 for the discussion, and then what would our next date be after that?
Maybe the 16th or 23rd, somewhere in there. Excuse me, we do, sorry, the 23rd will be our next regular meeting date after the 9th. But you may want a separate evening, so you may want to consider adding like the 16th of July.
Yeah, I go for another night.
Yeah, I think it's going to be helpful to have a separate night to discuss this.
All right, and I agree, Noreen. Just with the way things are, it does take a long time virtually to discuss and review everything. All right, so would anyone like to make a motion?
So in that case, I would make a motion to close the hearing.
Second,
Okay, motion to close the hearing made by Bob and seconded by Ed. Roll call vote. Bob?
Robert Dugan, aye.
Ed? We'll go with Mary. How's that? 'Cause I know he's on the
Mary,
delay.
Mary,
It
aye.
takes a few seconds. Ed?
Ed Van Kuren, aye.
There he is. Okay. And TJ Hurry, aye.
And then I would make a motion to schedule July 2nd for board discussion of the project. And again, that would be board discussion, so there wouldn't be any input from public or applicant.
Right. So the motion to continue for board discussion to July 2nd, that was made by Bob. Is there a second?
Second,
Seconded by Ed. Roll call vote. Bob?
Robert Dugan, aye.
Ed?
Ed Van Kuren, aye.
Mary?
Mary, aye.
And TJ Hurry, aye. And as we mention every time, so the motion carries. The hearing is closed, so no more testimony may be taken. As for the written record or anything else like that, we have continued to July 2nd for a board discussion on the project. Attorney Clara, thank you for your time tonight and your team.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate you putting up with me for 4 straight hearings. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, and that does it for our hearings. And moving on to the open meeting. We have minutes from May 14th, 2020. Has everyone had a chance to review those?
May 14th, I did.
All right. Would
So
anyone
motion to
like-
approve the minutes of May 14th.
Second,
Seconded by Ed. Motion to approve the minutes. Roll call vote. Bob?
Robert Dugan, aye.
Ed?
Ed Van Kuren, aye.
Mary?
Mary, aye.
Scott?
Zelinski, aye.
James? Welcome back.
Forsythe.
And to Scott too. And TJ Hurry, aye. And the minutes from May 28th, 2020, they are being tabled for now. Board discussion, management of abutter participation for the Zoom hearings. Does anyone have anything at all? Noreen?
Just to update you folks, we have a new 40B filing that will be for 63 North Falmouth Highway. The staff will be discussing that property on June 17, and then it will be scheduled to be open on July 9th.
All right. And is that having its own dedicated night or is it added on with other things?
We have not for the initial night, but
Mhm.
I think, maybe a consideration for a second meeting would be, following their introduction would be to have some separate time.
Very good. Thank you, Noreen. Anything else for board updates? How about future agenda items? All right, seeing none. It's 9:55 feels early. Never thought I'd say that. All right, so our next hearing will be June 25th, 6:30 here at a virtual town hall. Everyone have a good night, and thank you, everyone, FCTV and everyone at Falmouth IT, Adriana and Thomas, thank you once again.
Good night, guys.
Good night,
Good
everyone.
night.